start with very quickly introduce myself and my company. Question is, who has heard of Turan Institute in here? Thank you, Hans. Oh, one, that's perfect. No panic, I will explain very quick what is Turan Institute. But I would like to start off with who is this guy standing here. My name is Rudi Bachmann. I have mentioned that, yes, I have a German accent in my English. I have a Swiss passport. I have been born and raised in Switzerland, but I have a Spanish heart because I'm living in Spain. 50 years old. Usually they say, yeah, you look longer. I see here, yes, thank you. And yes, I have 19 years of experience in food processing. Food processing, I have been working in different continents, in different countries, and in different positions. The last position I had for an international company was Area Vice President Southern Europe, in charge for Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. Since 10 years now, I'm working as a consultant, as a business consultant, and as a management coach, specialized in, as I mentioned before, quality management. And when I say quality management, I pretend to say that I have 103 years experience of quality management. I will explain you why. When I joined the business consulting area, I was asked by Dr. Turan to join his institute, Turan Institute. And at that time, Dr. Turan used to be 98 years old. That was my oldest boss I ever had. And he died 5 years ago with 103 years. So whatever I learned from quality management, I picked up with him. 103 years of experience. As I said, I'm working out of Madrid. There's my home office. And I'm working for all types of industries. So throughout automotive, banks, insurance, manufacturing, whatever. Dr. Turan, together with Deming, is seen as one of the quality gurus. Dr. Turan dedicated his entire life to quality. And with only 75 years, he started Turan Institute, where he asked me to come on board. He is also known as the father of modern quality. And he's a writer as well, or he used to be a writer as well. And still his books, especially quality management, is seen as the Bible, sort of, for quality management. His last book he couldn't finish anymore, so we, the management, we finished his last book on quality and on leadership on quality. There is a lot of literature, you can see that as well, and maybe you're interested in digging in a little bit. But today, what are we talking here today? And I have followed, I have to say only 2 of your presentations yesterday. Of course, the English ones, because there was no use of the Polish ones. And I have seen that you are very much into testing. And yes, you are very much into quality in testing. But I would like to bring you a little bit higher up, quality management on a higher level, because I think quality is far more than just the testing at the end. And I would like to explain that. And in order to do that, you have to choose the right methods at the right moment, according to several different issues. And that's what I would like to talk about. I have to start with the trilogy, which Dr. Turan, he has mentioned that many, many years ago. He said, for all of us, it's very clear if we talk about finance, that we plan, that we control. Yes, we plan, we do a budget, finance budget, and then we control on a monthly, even though on a weekly basis, what's going on with our funds. And he said, quality has to be exactly the same. We have to plan as well. So plan, we have a timeline, and we have a cost line. The higher up, the worse, because we want to have the cost low. Yesterday, somebody as well mentioned cost of quality. But we also talk about cost of poor quality. So cost we could have avoided. So the higher up, the worse. And he said, there is a phase of control, and very often companies are just sticking to that phase. And yes, they control, very similar to finance things, certain KPIs, key performance indicators related to your quality. And as long as these indicators are in within a certain given line, that's fine. And as soon as something goes up too high and out of those barriers, we call it a sporadic spike, they are launching it on it, and they find remedies in order to bring it down again. So this is the control phase. And I believe that many of you are in exactly this. But what we are interested in as well is all these hidden costs, all this possible waste, all this possible cost of poor quality. And that's not even touched with just those sporadic spikes. So what we are vouching for is improvement. Improvement means to drive out this chronic waste and to bring your quality to a totally new level. And with this lesson learned, you are then able to start a new cycle at the lower level. So we have plan, control, and improve. And when we say improve, we are talking about a breakthrough, something extremely large, not just a 5 or a 2 or 3% improvement. What we are looking for is really a 30%, 40% improvement. And then once we have the new level, yes, we must make sure that we stay at that level. That's assurance then. That's the idea of how we think we should talk about quality. So what does superior quality mean, actually? And there again, Dr. Duran mentioned that there are two sides. One is you have to have the right features for your products, for your services. The features the customers are looking for. And you have to bring those features in a failure-free form. If you have done that, you are fit for purpose. And you are effective and efficient. On one side, if you have the right features, you can ask a good price, a good market price, because the customer is willing to pay for that. And if you can produce those right features for your service and for your product, failure-free, without waste, then you have less cost, and all this is money. If you talk to your colleagues, usually they only talk about things. But if we talk quality, we talk money. So there you can see Dr. Duran, he is American, he talks money. Again, what are these two sides? The right features. Here are some indicators which could be possible correct features. But those features are given by the customer. And you have to listen to the customer. You have to ask him, what are you looking for? And very often, he cannot express himself very clearly. You know that on your own, because very often they come back and say, yeah, but I wanted to have it this way, and so on. So we have to transform the voice of customer to the right features. And on the other side, free of failure. Yesterday as well, a few persons have mentioned quick and faster cycle times, quick time or lead time for releases and things like that. That's exactly what is on this side. So, yesterday somebody asked as well, if you have been working in different countries, is there a huge difference? And I think it was Richard who mentioned that, yes, 10 years ago there was a lot of differences, but these days everybody more or less is in the same. But if you are in the same world and the same level as your competitor, you will not be the winner. So what we think is, you have to go for these breakthroughs. Just by small increases, you will not make your difference to your competitor. You have to search for breakthroughs. So how do we get to these breakthrough improvements? And this is a step-by-step approach. And the first one is really to identify the problem. Yesterday as well, I learned through Richard that while testing, yes, you get a lot of bugs, and yes, you measure those bugs, but very often you don't understand the problem. So first is identify the problem and make a breakthrough of your attitude, explaining that, yes, we have problems. Yes, we don't accept these type of problems in the future, so change your mind. How do you identify and clearly define those problems is with some tools I have marked here. In this case, it's a project charter, explaining exactly what's the problem, where you want to go, who is working on that problem, in what timeline. I have prepared as well handouts, and I learned that you will get them in an electronic format with all those slides for future references. After you have identified the problem, you have to establish the project. A project is just a problem to be solved. So I have established the problem, and now I establish a project in order to solve the problem. And very often there's a mistake done that you try to solve the world hunger with one project. It's not possible. You cannot solve all your problems with one project. You have to put it down in bits and pieces. Similar like to eat an elephant. You do it one piece by one piece. So once you have established the project, again I have mentioned here some tools to go with, is a breakthrough of organization, because people have to learn to work in teams, maybe from different departments, in order to attack the problem. And once the teams are working, they are diagnosing the cause, not just the symptom. The symptom is a bug, but we are looking for the cause in order to prevent those same symptoms in the future. Diagnose the cause means you have a breakthrough in knowledge. Suddenly you realize, whoops, yes, there it is, that's why it happened. Yesterday as well, again, by measuring those issues, you learn. And Richard also mentioned the triangle of knowledge. You might have a lot of data, but if you only have data, it doesn't help. You have to treat that data. And Dr. Duran said you have to strangle the data until it confesses. And then you gain knowledge. Here in Diagnose the Cause, you have a lot of possible tools, quality management tools, in order to work and in order really to get to the root cause. That's what we want to eliminate, this root cause, in order to prevent the same mistakes, the same bugs in the future. Once you know the cause, of course, you search for remedies. So, what are possible remedies in order to prevent those bugs? And again, a lot of different tools possible to work with, and then you have to get a breakthrough in your cultural patterns. This is the most difficult ones. We are talking as well, your people, they have done certain things on and on in the same way, and now suddenly you have to tell him, you have to change. And change is very difficult. And nobody likes change because there is a certain uncertainty on it. Or if they like change, they say, yeah, of course, you change, but I stay here. So this is a lot of work as well. And it's not just with tools, it's also management change. Once you have done that, it's important to hold the gains. And then only you get the breakthrough in the results. Once you have the breakthrough in results for one project, you duplicate and you replicate the entire process for other projects. with the gained knowledge, it might be far easier than to do that. And then you have a breakthrough in sustainability of your products and of your service. This is how we at Juran, we feel that we get to a breakthrough, and yes, we get towards excellence. So it's up to you. It's up to your company, it's up to your management to decide which way do you want to go. Is it to break down? Because if you just stay as you are, other people will take you over. So it's up to you to make sure that let's go for breakthrough. I have to come back to Dr. Juran again. Dr. Juran was very well known for the bow tie, that's why the bow tie is here. But he has mentioned that if you talk about quality, we talk about the Q, but not the small q, just product quality or service quality, but we talk about the capital Q. Because, capital Q affects everything. You cannot work in an excellence state if you don't have your employees with that mindset, if you don't have your suppliers in that mindset, if you don't have all your processes aligned to that. So capital Q means everything, all the departments in your office, in your company. We are talking about capital Q for quality. And he has mentioned as well that very important are the 3 Ps. People, process, performance. All this you have to put together, because it's impossible to achieve this if you don't have your people behind you, if you have not trained your people to go that road, if you don't have clearly defined your processes, and if you don't measure very clear your performance. Yesterday somebody said, if I'm not measuring, I'm not controlling. Well, we say, if you are not measuring, you are unable to improve. Let's work towards a little bit the methods. We have seen before those different steps. Understand, create. I mentioned that in order to understand the problem, you have to work with your customers. You have to understand the customer needs, the customer complaints, and this you have to transform into some measurable quality items. So you have to deploy a strategy and a plan. How are you capturing that? And how are you putting all those different improvement processes and projects in within your company? Because it has to be seen as something part of your work, not something extra. So you have to deploy plans and you have to deploy a strategy in order to go that breakthrough road. Once you have that, you have decided, you have to come up with the organization effectiveness. And I show you later on that you have to have an organization standing behind that in order that you can design products and delight the customers. And yes, later on, you will be able to optimize your operation. And that's the idea behind the whole thing. This will allow you to be the best of class, ahead of the others. I think it's clear if you say that usually there's a roadmap you have to go. And the roadmap starts with the first decision. You have to take the decision, yes, we want to go a breakthrough improvement, not just the normal way. We don't accept that yesterday we mentioned that testing takes 3 days or 4 days or 1 week. Because competition might be do it in 1 day, so let's do it in 1 day as well, a breakthrough. Once you have decided that you want to go that road, it's the next chapter, and this is prepare your company to go that road. then launch a first maybe pilot, or launch it in one part of your company. And then once it's successful, then you can expand in the other areas of your company or a bit more projects. And as I mentioned at the end, and then you have to sustain it to make sure that you live it. There are different tools and different ways to do it. So decide this is a leadership thing. Because you on your own, you cannot do it. You have to make sure that the entire company is taking that road. Because it's a huge effort. Once you have decided and prepared, then you have to come up with possible projects. And those possible projects have to be aligned with the vision your company has. We want to become leader in that. We want to become better in that. So all the projects and all the efforts have to be aligned. Then you have to launch. In order to launch, you have to prepare the people to work on those projects. Maybe you have to teach them certain new tools and techniques to work with. And for the expansion, the same of the same. But once you have the first results, it gets easier and easier. It's like pushing a stone uphill, and once you are really there, it's going easy and going down. I mentioned that you have to come up with a quality structure. This might be very huge, but you have a management in your company, and yes, they have to take it as normal that continuous improvement and breakthrough improvement is part of our life, should be part of our organization, should be part of our day-to-day work. Yes, we have maybe to have certain people who know the techniques, who know the different methods for these breakthrough results. Put them in place. But they have to be driven top down. And yes, we have to come up with teams in order to work on those projects. Here I have used the language of Lean and Six Sigma, because there it's all with this black belt, green belt, yellow belt. Have you heard about that? Because Dr. Juran orientated himself in Japan with karate. And he said karate is fantastic because you use all your forces in one moment on one side, and you get results. And that's what we have to do with projects as well. We have to have projects of not more than 4 months in order to get breakthrough results. Concentrate our forces, concentrate our issues, and then go on to the next project. So that's why he used this language of karate. And yes, very important, you have to ensure that there is perfect communication in between all those issues. Usually the teams, they have to come up with a presentation or with some reports on how is their progress, either to some specific leader within the organization or to the entire team. And yes, very important, everything has to be top down. The management team or the leaders of your company or of the department, they have to mention what projects are we going to work. Because, as I said, they have to be aligned with your vision. They have to be aligned with what you want to achieve. So here we have vision, here we have the technical part, and here we have the teams working in those phases, as I've mentioned before. Measure, analyze, improve, and control. And again, it's not something which is additional. It's something ingrained in your company. And somehow, most of you most probably are certified ISO. And there as well, it's exactly the same thing. It has to be part of your company. It has to be part of your DNA. And here's a possible management system where we can clearly see that everything is part of your daily work. Here I've mentioned root cause and corrective action. With root cause and corrective action, of course, you will not gain breakthroughs. You are just working on the sporadic spikes. But with the other methods, we come back to that later, there you get real breakthroughs. So how are we going to select the right method? If you have small gain or a clear solution, I don't have to come up with huge projects and with huge teaching and training for some teams on Lean or Six Sigma or other methodologies, but maybe I only have to have change management. Or, as I mentioned before, I have to work on root cause and corrective action. And yes, there is a limited toolbox for quality tools in order to work on those issues. And yes, somebody in your organization should know them and should be able to work with those tools. But if you want to get large gains or radical gains, or if you want to launch a totally new process, then you have to have the big weapons. And the big weapons for us is, as I mentioned, Lean, Six Sigma, or quality by design. And those are methodologies you have to be trained on in order to really be able to apply them. So it depends on what you want to gain. It depends on what you want to achieve. It depends on maturity of your company in terms of quality management. Which tool is best to apply for? As I mentioned, if it's just a sporadic spike you want to bring down, don't use the Canon, just use root cause. The formula for success, and again I have taken this out of the idea of Lean Six Sigma, where we say there is an output, which is the Y of a process. And the output of a process is a function of various inputs, of various X. And for me, those are the critical X, the vital few ones, as we mention it. And one is senior executive has to have commitment to go that breakthrough way. And it's not only involvement, it's commitment. Do you know the difference? I always compare it to an English breakfast table. On the English breakfast you have ham and egg. Well, the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. So executive team has to be committed to go that way. And yes, don't rush, don't jump. Has to have a proper planning. As I said, it's the roadmap I have mentioned before. So needs to have proper planning at the several level. I mentioned several times has to come up top down. Because if you are just doing projects for project's sake, you are not going closer to your strategic goals. Therefore, the decision of what projects has to be done and solved comes by the management. And yes, of course, you start with the pilot and you use the best leaders and maybe not the most difficult project to start with in order to make sure that's a winner. Because once you have a winner, then it's easier to replicate. And what we are doing usually is, if you go on to those methods, Lean and Six Sigma, you are not just teaching it. You are teaching it on the same time you are doing projects. Because then it's really on a help on. And on top of that, after you have trained your people, you already get the first gains out of your projects. And usually you have a very good payback on that. So you invest time, you invest money for the training, but the project's results give you back in 6 months, usually 4 to 12 times the money you have invested. And yes, you have to have a measure system in place. So you have to have your KPIs, your, maybe you call it dashboards or whatsoever, to ensure that you are moving in the right direction. To see, as Richard mentioned, that you see your trends. And one more time, has to be integrated. And in the early days, you had your quality teams. That's not going to work anymore. Quality has to be ingrained in you, in your teams, in all your employees. Summary. There are not good or bad methods. It is really just a matter of to choose the right one in the right moment, according to your needs and according to your maturity. Yes, there might be good or bad moments. if you really want to make a breakthrough and wake up your people in order to, we have to do a bigger change, that's not so easy. And sometimes it helps if you have a crisis in your company, that then the people are more willing to take another route and are more willing to engage in these type of issues. So there are good and bad moments to choose that part, but you will never find the ideal moment, that's for sure. I have mentioned before, choose the right method. Should it be Lean Six Sigma, or is it possible just to work with change management and with root cause analysis in order to achieve the results you are looking for? And maybe you should start there, building up there. First, learn to walk before you are running. And don't forget the roadmap and the capital Q. Don't think it's just something by a small issue. No. Everything is involved, this capital Q. Ensure the infrastructure, as I've mentioned. If teams are working and they don't get feedback, they don't get a reward, even though if it's only a thank you from the management, that will die out. So you have to have this infrastructure in place, and you have that very clear under control. And the last one, but in my opinion the most essential one, you have to have a very clear understanding and a commitment from the management. I have now 5 minutes left for your questions. Thank you very much.